and the film has to be 5 minutes or less. So why that is so important is because right when we got our first draft of the film on Monday night, it was 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Hey guys, my name is Kevin Waczek from the Filmmakersblog.com, where we believe knowledge is value, and the more you have, the more valuable you are going to be on set. So this video revolves around my latest short film, Dark Days, and that was a product of a 7-day film festival I did around 2 weeks ago. So if you haven't checked that out yet, it will be in the link in bio, and I encourage you to do so. So for this video, we're going to talk about the 7-day struggle of making this film and how even finishing this thing on time was a miracle. Then we're going to go into the screening and the awards. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at the film together so I could tell you some exclusive info that you're not going to get anywhere else. So day one was all about writing. It took us 3 scripts before we can agree on a story to tell. It started with a murder mystery and then went into a horror comedy and then kind of just landed on a horror thriller. So even at this point, the script isn't 100% done. We actually finish it on Saturday, which is actually day 4. But finished script or not, we needed to start shooting as soon as possible. Day 2 was our first day of filming. For this day, we shot the entire opening sequence of the night trail and the bike scene all at night. And there was only 3 people on set, including myself. So there was Frankie, Trevor, and me. And since Frankie and Trevor were both acting, we had a really small crew. We used 2 battery-powered lights to light the entire film, and they had to be battery-powered since we had no power and no generator. And keep in mind, we were on this random trail on the side of the road and it's pitch black. Since we only had 2 lights, we used 1 light to light our actors and the other light just to see what the heck we're doing. So with this lighting setup, we really had to embrace that contrasty, dark, black for a lot of the frame type of look and style. And so after this first shoot, I actually tried to replicate this type of look throughout the rest of the film so that it kind of falls into place and nothing looks, out of place or too different than what we started off with. So we filmed from around 7 to 11 p.m. So 4 hours, not too bad, but it gets worse. So day 3 was hands down the most productive day filming. We got all of the inside shots done, the dining room scenes, the exit and entrance doorway scenes, and since that was such a big block of the film, it was really great to get that done. The very productive day 3 went from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., so 6 hours, a little more than 4, but it gets worse. Day 4 was a big day because on day 4 I did something I've never done before, and that was to film an action sequence. Short it may be, it's an action sequence nonetheless. We had people falling off cars, people tackling other people, and it's alright because we had a mattress down, so that's what they fell onto. I mean, we're not barbaric. We tried to make it comfy. So on day 4 we shot all of the outside tracking shots, the doorway shots, the ending, and the entire action sequence but Frankie's singles. And this shoot went from 7 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. So a long day. What is that, 7.5 hours? So not the longest day I've ever had, but definitely keeps getting worse. And can it get worse than this? Yes, it can. So day 5, we didn't do anything on day 5. Day 6 is when it started to get really interesting. Why? Because when we started filming on Monday, day 6, we had less than 24 hours to turn it in by Tuesday at 5 p.m. Less than 24 hours. Something that I didn't mention earlier, which comes into play right now, is part of the rules for the CMF festival. And I actually didn't talk about any of the rules, but the only 2 you really need to know is it has to be done in 7 days, and the film has to be 5 minutes or less. So why that is so important is because right when we got our first draft of the film on Monday night, it was 6 minutes and 15 seconds. So 1 minute and 15 seconds over where we needed to be, and it didn't have the credits, and it didn't even have the 5 shots we took that night of Frankie in the action sequence. So we were in a pretty tough spot at this point. So not only did we need to trim back the film, we needed to add sound effects, music, and finally special effects. So we were in for a long night, and a long night we had. We went all night from 8 p.m. to 7:30 in the morning, where we finalized the sound effects, the edit, all sound, like music, all sound. And the only thing we had to do left was special effects. So Frankie, who edited the film, Frankie is the guy who starred in the film, he edited the film, and he's doing this special effects He worked on that all the way until 4:30. By the way, it's day 7. Through the night, it's Tuesday. Done Tuesday 4:30. We turned it in right before 5 o'clock on the deadline, and boom, a freaking miracle on how we pulled that off. We did it. So just a couple days later, they had a screening / premiere for the film festival. There were 77 submissions overall. The top 16 got screened at the festival, and then the top 4 moved on to Atlanta. So I'm happy to announce, and I'm thankful to announce, that we were the top 16 at the film festival. Not only that, we were the top 4, and we were moving on to Atlanta to compete in the Terminus Film Festival. And we also got Best Sound. So that whole night, the whole crazy night of monster drinks and stress paid off because we were awarded Best Sound, and a special thanks to Ryan Waczek from Lionbold Records, who allowed us to use his music in the film. You can check out a lot of his film scores that he's giving out for free right now. Link in bio. If you're a filmmaker looking for music, it's free. It's in the link in bio. It's awesome, high quality stuff, professional stuff. You're gonna love it. Go click it. So now let's take a look at the film together. So let's get into this and let's start it off. I think the music hits there so nicely. I really love it. Yeah, and for those footsteps right there, we actually didn't use the footsteps in the actual take of what we recorded. Those are from a completely different take, and Frankie was so consistent with his footsteps that when we plopped in the new audio, it was perfect. We didn't have to do anything to it, so that was really nice, especially editing this thing at like 3 a.m. What's great about this part is that while we were actually on the trail, just off the road, it was really dark there, but just off the road, the script says that Trevor, who's playing the zombie kind of half dead type of guy, is up against a tree, and then he goes and finds him. But there were so many spiders around, especially black widows, that he did not want to come up and against the tree, and I wouldn't blame him either. He said, I do not want to die today. And I respect that, Trevor. So we put him right in the middle of the trail. That way it's easier on him, so his life isn't threatened. And not only that, but I think it helps out the story a little bit, almost, that our character doesn't have to go out of his way to discover something. It's right in his path. And since it's a 5-minute limit on this film, it kind of needs to get going pretty quick with what else we want to show in this thing.
Hello? Is anybody home? Hello?
So this red shot, excuse me, this red shot right here is kind of supposed to be a monster POV. That's exactly what we were going for. Kind of changing up the entire color scheme. It's a totally different shot with regards to framing and what's in the shot than everything else. We've been really centered on close-ups and medium shots throughout this entire thing. Or this full shot, almost it's kind of like a wide, but I'd say it's more of a full shot. Even though we can see the entire doorway, it kind of shows a different angle of what's going on with our character.
Is anyone there?
Ooh. Badass. So for that, Trevor, actually Catherine, who plays Kim in the story, the girl that is surviving in this terrible world, she was not actually on set during shooting of when he gets pulled into the door. Those were 2 separate days from inside and outside of the door. But Trevor was there, and so what he did is he put just one hand through her sleeve, grabbed Frankie, and threw him in. So that's kind of, I think, what adds to the violent nature of that shot, is because Trevor, 6'2" dude, is just throwing him in, and also makes Catherine look way badass in there. She comes out, throws him in, turns around, pulls out a knife. It's like she means business.
So, what's your name?
This was really cool because we got to use candles. Haven't really shot with candles before, but it helps with color tones. Everything's really blue and dark, and having those bright orange specks kind of lighting up different parts of the scene, I think really gives some depth, especially in the background of the shots. And this entire dinner sequence, we had our two LED battery panels actually outside of the house shooting in through the windows. That's our key light. We don't have any type of fill at all except for the candles that are on the table shining up kind of at this direction. So we have our moonlight basically through the windows, and then our candles coming up, and then some candles in the background. And that really takes care of that entire shot.
It's all gone.
I mean, surely the government did something, right?
They did, for a while. But you can't be everywhere at once.
I mentioned it in the other video, but
There's so much.
our first draft was 6.5 minutes long, so we had to get rid of some lines here and some pauses. So that's probably why it seems pretty quick, but it was necessary, and I still think it flows pretty well.
Those things are out there. You'll die. Promise. Your family is dead.
Oh, shut up! Okay.
So this doorway scene, it's pretty, not the biggest doorway, so we were using more wide angle lenses to capture when we had to capture both of them in the frame. But the two shots where we have close-ups of Frankie, him yelling "shut up" and turning around, them saying how did you survive then, those were actually shot with a 50mm, which I think brings a lot of emotion and a lot of I think it brings a lot of emotion into the framing and into what lenses we're choosing to film this thing, because we've been so wide throughout the entirety of the film, but once it starts getting to that personal level with these characters, we're moving up to that 50mm to see the emotion and to really get that good cinematic blur around our character.
For all I know, we could be the only people left in the city.
And then right here too, trying to emphasize on emotion, a slight dolly shot going in. You kind of forget about Frankie, who was on the outside of the frame, and we're going in towards Catherine, the character Kim, as she talks about her family.
I want to be alone.
What is that?
That scream was crazy. Favorite shot. Just love him running. The biggest thing for me with this ending is that we really wanted it to punch, and I really wanted to have a lot of longer shots with it, and that's kind of tough in an action type setting. The longer shot of Andre, one of the zombies, running down, that kind of longer shot that set the pace. The longer shot of Catherine, or of Kim, throwing the bat all the way to Frankie, and then him doing the strike on the cut. I thought that was really great. Another long shot, and then the last one is following Frankie into the car, and then having the camera just go straight into the car and finish it off with their lines of dialogue. And that is it. So if you found value in this video, please subscribe for more videos like this one, as well as filmmaking tutorials and tips, and I'll see you guys next Friday.